Welcome to How'd You Do That? Today I have a special guest, Ricardo Marvao. He is an investor, entrepreneur, and the co-founder of Beta E. Welcome, Ricardo. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Can you tell us more about yourself and Beta E?
Okay, so Beta E is an organization, a nonprofit that started about 10 years ago in Lisbon, Portugal. And I don't know, I guess you saw on TV, there was a crisis in Portugal back in 2009, 2010. I guess most of the countries felt the crisis, but in Portugal it was particularly bad because we had to have a bailout and the country went bankrupt and the situation here was not good. And so a lot of us were outside or doing other things, and we felt the need to really have to create something that would help out the people that were in need of getting out of the crisis. So instead of you having to leave the country or basically trying to get a job and not getting anything for a year, 2 years, and not knowing if you're going to get employed again in the near future, maybe we thought maybe entrepreneurship could be a good way out of the crisis. So we started Beta E exactly because of that. If you can't find a job, create your own job. And my background is it's computer science, and then I worked 10 years in the space industry. First at the European Space Agency, then past studies in the Chinese Space Agency, the ISU, and then a master's in Toulouse, which is also a big town for aerospace. And then I went to London and Boston, also in the aerospace industry. Up to the point that I had my own startup, and then I sold back in 2010 that startup. And at the time, meeting with other entrepreneurs, we decided to build Beta E, mainly because of what was happening, also because there was a change coming from the US with all the accelerators, the co-workers, a lot of different movements that were happening for the entrepreneurs, and we wanted to be part of that movement. And we thought this could be an amazing time to really create something like this in Portugal. And it's actually moments of crisis that create the best opportunities.
Right. And what do you do then for Beta E?
So we first started by working with the people. Give me 1 second.
Sure.
We basically started first by creating talks to really inspire the people to understand what are the stories that typically convince you that, okay, maybe there is something here for me. Maybe if I have an idea, I can start. So we would we created something which was our first product called Beta Talk. Basically, it's a conversation about 2 hours, 2 entrepreneurs that come and talk about their story and how they started, how they advanced on their idea, the challenges they faced, the problems they had. And it was very genuine conversations. And because of that, people felt that there was a community that was growing, that really wanted to understand what it is this about creating something new and really moving forward. And very quickly, I think the first one we had like 10 or 15 people, and it started growing, and then we started doing in other cities. And in 2 years or something like this, we had like 1,500 people every month going to these talks. And I think after that, everything else we did at Beta E was requested by the, let's say, the audience, or it wasn't something that we said, oh, now we have to do this. What we did was that first beta talk, and then people started, okay, now I have an idea, how do I start? So we started pre-acceleration programs. Then they said, okay, now I have a prototype, how do I go to market? And we started an acceleration. Then corporates that were also mentors of these inside the accelerator of the startups basically said, okay, we like the methodologies you guys are using. How can we use these inside our own corporates? And so we started an innovation area. And then they started, okay, now we want to use technology from outside. So we decided to open innovation area. And then we started having requests from startups saying, it's difficult to find the first investment. Can you guys help? So we started the funds. Mm-hmm. And so all these were requests from, say, the people and the organizations that we were helping, mm-hmm. to actually create or find a solution for these requests. So that part was very, very interesting, to feel that we were always creating the next thing in the ecosystem. What is the next step? What is the next product that should be developed so that the startups move to the next phase?
Right, okay. And is there anything else that you're working on besides Beta E at the current time?
I mean, I help a lot of startups, and I help a lot of organizations, especially nonprofits, and anything to do with impact or sustainability or education. I try to, if I find, and this should be something that it's something to do with people. You have to really believe in the people that you're working with and see that they're producing a valuable program or products to the market that you want to help them. Maybe you have some insights, maybe you have some contacts, maybe you have some connections that might help this organization, instead of just doing some specific one-time help. If you really believe in these founders or in this team, then why not create a more structured approach where you can be an advisor and give an hour, 2 hours a month to help these entrepreneurs. And maybe sometimes it's like the small things that create a huge difference, you know, like an introduction that 1 year later, the entrepreneur said, you know, this was the guy that you introduced me, that then introduced me to my investor. And then from this investment, we grew to another kind of organization. And today, a year later, we're much well prepared to help the people that we really want to help. You know, and sometimes it's like it's a combination of many things, of course, but and the success comes out of a lot of work. But sometimes these little helps, these little introductions or insights provide a lot for an entrepreneur that needs that little part of help to move to the next phase.
Right. And you mentioned right now that success comes out of a lot of work. And how did you become successful? Like how did you get to where you are today?
If you're asking me why I became an entrepreneur, I think I would say it's because of my father. My father used to work in the south of Portugal, mm-hmm. And when I was a kid, we used to drive all the time there, and it's a 3-hour drive. And I remember my father used to start this game where you have an idea at the beginning of the game, and during the trip we had to develop the idea, and the idea would have to become a business somehow. So there was a lot of questions. So how would you start, and what would be the business model, and how would you sell this, and how would you market this, and you know, all these questions makes you think, and then sometimes you reach roadblocks in the middle of your thoughts, and you have to rethink, okay, but what if this happens? Okay, then I might do X or Y or Z. And we used to do this a lot. And I always liked this thing of creating new businesses and making people and convincing people that I might have an interesting product that might help them. So very early on, in my early 20s, I started my own. This is my third startup, and very early on, I started liking this a lot. And then because of that, I also help a lot. I also help because I think it's important that you give back as you grow your experience. It's very important that you give back also on that experience, because there's nothing good in trying to reinvent the wheel every single time. If you can help entrepreneurs advance faster, instead of doing mistakes that you already know they're going to do because you already passed by that and you see that they're going to go right against the wall, then you might as well, look, guys, I think it's better for you to move a little bit more to the left or a bit more to the right. And that provides like something that might be as small as like, okay, we skipped here a small problem, or it could be the death of the startup because they went to the wrong way, you know. And if you are okay to help out, and of course it's a combination of a lot of people helping, but if a lot of people help, then the startup will be for sure more successful or have better chances of being successful in the future.
Right. And I know you talked a lot about giving back, and you talk a lot about Portugal and the adversities that it faced. So you promote Portugal for investment a lot. So why is that?
Well, one, it's because I'm Portuguese.
For sure.
Two, it's because I love my country and I think it's an amazing country to live. There's great opportunities here, and there's a lot of it's a combination of different things: the talent that you have, the work-life balance, the quality of life here. There's a lot of good things about Portugal, and I just want to. There's so many people moving now to Portugal. Not only foreigners that want to have a different kind of life, right, but also companies that want to establish a business here and be closer to what's happening on innovation, on the startups, on investment or whatever. Of course, it's a small country, and of course, it's a small market, but there are a lot of things happening, and some things are very, very interesting. It's some things are very fast-paced, and it's a good moment to be here. And so that's also why, another one of the reasons why I promote Portugal, and I promote the businesses that are here and the opportunities, and a lot of times people that come and are searching for an opportunity, why not connect them to a job that's available, or maybe connecting a startup that's growing in Silicon Valley and wants to start a business in Europe, and why not create a subsidiary here with, I don't know, 50 people or 100 people that might be very, very interesting for their business model. And if you create an opportunity for them to see that, then you're giving your 0.1% to help the country.
Right. And you mentioned a lot about the work-life balance. Can you talk about your work-life balance and how it's helped you?
Yeah. So it's very interesting that you say this, because I had like a mini crisis back in like 2016. Okay. And there was this web summit here, this big conference of entrepreneurs and startups. And the first year was in 2016. And we were lucky enough to be invited by the founder, Paddy, to go to this more like a retreat with founders, like 100 people, called the Founders. And this is right after the web summit. And we were, there was a lot of talks and there was a lot of interesting conversations, and you had to select. It was like 40, 50 topics, and one of the topics was work-life balance. And I remember I'm like, I want to go to this topic, and I went there, and there was like, I don't know, 8 people, something like this, a lot of Americans, and then we went around the room, and most of the people were like a bit of okay, I've done this startup, and I've raised 500 million, and then sold for I don't know, 700 million or something like this, and then created a fund. Now I have 300 million in the fund. I've invested in 150 startups, you know, different things like this. And more or less everyone was the same. And then, okay, and then, so how do you manage your work-life balance? The moderator was trying to get to the point of the conversation. And the first guy goes like, well, you know, it's not easy, but there's a lot of work, but I try to be with the family and work less when I can. And the second guy goes like, guys, we're among peers, I believe. So I'm going to tell you my truth. So I'm getting a divorce. I haven't seen my kids for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months. I work way too much. I take pills to sleep. My co-founder is an asshole. You know, my team hates my guts. I have anxiety attacks, and really not a good moment right now. And then the third and the fourth and all the other guys were more or less the same, until the first one goes back and says, well, actually, I'm also getting a divorce, and I'm also in a bit of a bad state. And I left after it finished, I left the conversation. I remember calling my wife and saying, look, I don't want to be in that position. So I really want to rethink what I want to do and how I want to work and how I want to live my life, and with my kids and you, and how we want to move forward. So I need time. I want to take at least a month off to think about all this and try to talk with a lot of people and rethink all the priorities, all the things that make me happy, and make the family happy, and make my life interesting or more balanced. And I went through this month of reflection, and I wrote about it, and I revisit every now and again. I revisit what I wrote, and it's super important that you think about these things, because it's what drives you also to not be in a position of a crisis again, or at least reflect that, look, if you continue on this path, you already know the end, how it's going to turn out. And so I think it's very, very important that you reflect, especially as you move, as you grow older, as you do more and more of these things. And if you want to do this long term, there's a few things. I mean, there's like 3 basic ones are: you got to sleep well, you got to do exercise, and you got to eat well. So you have to eat healthy. You have to help your body exercise to be healthy, and you have to sleep. It's not good to sleep 5 or 6 hours a night. It just kills you. And there's a bunch of books that if you read Why We Sleep or others, there's a bunch of research that shows that you really should sleep well to really improve your game. But I think, and then of course there's other things. One, you should really love what you do and care about what you do. Be with the people that you love and care about. And these are like the bare minimum that you should really value. And if you take those already and you are able to do those, then you're in the right path.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. So then What is your passion then? You talk a lot about work-life balance. I'm assuming family probably is one of them.
Sorry, I lost a little bit of connection here.
Oh, sorry, I was mentioning that. Then what is your passion? I'm assuming family may be one of them because um, passion of, family is always a big passion for many.
Yeah, I mean, of course, all that, and I think that's usual for everyone. I think if the question is more, what is the thing, or what are the areas that really I like to work or participate, I would say nowadays maybe there's three areas that are important for me. One is creating impact, and so initiatives that create impact are very interesting, especially because the impact can be done in several ways. But I think it's important that the impact is not only about how much profit and how much revenue you got out of this project. All the kinds of sustainable projects, sustainability, green economy, all this will be, and during the passage of the new year, a lot of people were talking about the decades, what will be the big change of the decades. And I really think one of the big changes will be this part of the green and the sustainability, because we really were reaching that point where people really understand they gotta change. And the next decade will be probably dedicated to creating solutions that solve a lot of these issues. And that means also an opportunity. That means this industry will grow 2 digits for sure for the coming, I don't know, probably 10 years.
Wow.
So that's an amazing opportunity to go in. And then, so impact, sustainability, and the third, I would say, education. So anything to do with especially young generations, because that's when they really see it's where you can impact the most. And sometimes it's one talk that changes the life of a young person, inspires them to go to another thing, or makes them realize that actually what they were trying to decide, I don't know, to do in university is actually not the right choice, and maybe they should rethink or get new tools to reevaluate, or not only have an opinion of the father or the mother or the friends, but actually go into understanding better, okay, if I'm going to law, should I understand what it is to be a lawyer, and how is the daily life of a lawyer, and what are the ups and downs, and understanding a bit better. Today there's so much information, and so easy to get access to so many things, that there's no reason why a young person should not understand better what they're gonna study and then do. And then the other part is there's no more this a job for life.
Right.
Which means you're gonna be doing many different things during your lifespan. So you might do law at university, but that's not a reason why you're going to be a lawyer for the rest of your life. Maybe you're going to be a lawyer for 10 years, but after that, maybe you're a baker. And then after that, maybe you're going to work in, I don't know, health care. Because it's possible. It's not because, oh no, that's, no. Today there's so much information, so much freedom for these things, that you can learn about it, and you can actually go into different fields, completely different fields, and actually be good at those things. And that's also another thing that's important, because a lot of times the young generation is choosing something and they're afraid of, this is going to be my life. And it's important to show them that no, it's not because you're choosing this that's going to be you. It's important for them to see other role models, other people that show them that they went through a number of different professions, a number of different experiences in their lives, that actually demonstrate that I can do anything, or I can be anything in my life. And that's super powerful. And if you're able to demonstrate that in a 1 hour conversation, 1 day conversation, or workshop or something with a bunch of young kids, just that might change their life forever.
Right. No, that makes perfect sense. So, so Ricardo, where is your future of your work headed now?
My future work.
Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, you were just mentioning that people change. I mean, and that's what's happening right now. And it's actually happening right now. I mean, a lot of people are changing their what they do as a profession.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself staying in the same profession? Do you see yourself?
I'm lucky enough to be able to be in a position that I see a lot of this change. One, because I contact a lot of and work with a lot of startups, really a lot. And then I also work with a lot of industries across the board. And I see big corporations from the board to the trainee and how they work. And this provides me a lot of insights, and this provides me a lot of views of new projects that might be coming, or new areas that might be changing, or sometimes you're having a conversation with a person from an industry that you thought was going in one direction, and then just by half an hour conversation, you get some insights of how it's changing and how it's affecting maybe the employees or the workforce or the business model or different things. And if you correlate that with the bunch of new technology that's coming, how industries are intertwined and interconnected more and more, how, retail and energy are actually not that far away, because there's a lot of retailers entering into the energy business and a lot of energy business entering into retail. And so that means industries that typically would be a silo or not touch so much between them, today are more and more interconnected.
Right.
That means you have to prepare yourself much, much better. And I think, I don't know if I might do something else in the near future, but I think for now, what I see is all this change, and all this change, and going back to the last question, in all this change, the biggest opportunity I see right now is the sustainability, green with education in it. I think it's going to be a combination of this that will be very, very interesting to see so if there's the future work, it will probably be in this impact, sustainability, education part. I think that's really, the next 10 years will be very, very interesting in that arena.
Right. Wonderful. No, that's wonderful. I forgot to ask you one more question, which was, to get to where you are today, did you face any adversities, and how did you overcome them?
I think everyone, when they go for a project that they have no idea how it's going to be, they face adversities. Especially if you're the one leading the way, you're going to for sure have to take decisions that will affect not only what the project is doing, but also the lives of your colleagues, your workers, your partners, your clients. So I think it's very important that you take time to decide. Sometimes you don't have that luxury, but it's very important to decide the actions that you're going to take, and be careful of the decisions that you're going to take, because it affects things that are very important. Maybe it will be the life of other people. Maybe it will be your own business that might be affected by a decision that you're taking. But I think in the end, it's very important not to be afraid of taking a decision. I think it's worse not to take the decision than taking it. But then if you do a wrong decision, at least, okay, it's my responsibility now, let's fix this. And there's always a solution. My grandfather used to say, everything has a solution except when a person dies.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the case, that means it's okay. There's a solution for solving a problem. How big it might feel or seem, there's always a solution. You just have to figure out, maybe not alone. And it's very important, for instance, for us, when we were starting with our accelerators, we had two main red flags. One was solo founders, because we don't believe so much that it's possible to do, because it's very hard, like building a startup is super hard. And if you do it alone, it's even harder, because then these decisions, especially the big decisions, should be discussed, and should be discussed between the people that are peers. So if you are a lone founder, who are you gonna talk with? Your advisor that maybe you see once a month and doesn't really know the dynamics of the startup? Or I don't know, someone that works in the company, but it's not a co-founder, or it's not a person at your same level, that doesn't understand the intricacies of your job or the responsibilities that are in stake. So it's very important to have that, at least like another co-founder. I think for me, the best number is 3. Like this, you don't have a tie and everything. But at least someone else that you can exchange and discuss about the decisions that you're going to take. And I would say that's it.
Wow, wonderful. So you've had a wonderful life with great success. And I appreciate you taking your time today, Ricardo, and this interview. So is there any last words that you'd like to say before we go?
I would say thanks so much for the opportunity. I think it's important that this work is done also to share and inspire other people. I think it would be interesting to see where it goes, and the insights that you get from all these conversations, and how this can be spread to more and more people. And if this creates an opportunity to inspire just one person and to have this person be a success, then you've won the day.
Right, and that's exactly the my strategy, or the end result is what I want. And I thank you so much for taking the time again.
Thank you.
And we'll speak soon.
Thanks.
Thank you.